Captain Rhea Lennox sat in the command chair of the Scorpion, her ship drifting silently through the cold, infinite void of space. For years, humanity had waged war against the alien factions that threatened their colonies. The Alliance, a coalition of species brought together by common interest, had been humanity's greatest ally. But something was off. A whisper had begun to spread through the corridors of power, a whisper that something sinister was brewing in the deepest shadows of the universe. The Scorpion was en route to the outer rim of the galaxy, a region where even the Alliance dared not venture, known only for its remoteness and the strange anomalies that made even seasoned explorers uneasy. But to Rhea, this wasn't just another routine mission. She had received a confidential transmission from a source within the Alliance that hinted at something far more dangerous: dark matter. Not the cosmic substance that flowed through space, but an ancient, covert network of alien intelligences. And if what she had been told was true, this secret group had manipulated the events of galactic history for millennia. "All systems are in the green, Captain," Lieutenant Kara Hayes reported, her voice breaking through Rhea's thoughts. The tension in Kara's voice was evident, but it wasn't the first time Rhea had heard it. The tension was something different this time, though. She could feel it in the air, the growing sense of dread that gnawed at the edges of their mission. Rhea exhaled slowly and nodded, tapping a button on the arm of her chair. "Maintain course. We'll be reaching the coordinates in 15 minutes. As the ship hummed along, the crew gathered in the observation deck. The stars outside seemed like 1,000 diamonds, suspended in the void. But Rhea couldn't shake the feeling that out there among those stars, something was waiting. Something that had been lying in wait for eons. "What do you make of it, Captain?" Kara asked, joining her at the viewport. Rhea's eyes narrowed as she watched the dark expanse. "We're walking into something that has the potential to destroy everything we've built. The dark matter network isn't just a myth. It's been operating for centuries, shaping the fate of every intelligent species in this galaxy. But it's been hiding in the shadows, pulling strings." Kara's brow furrowed in confusion. "But how? Why would they manipulate us?" "Because they can," Rhea replied, her voice cold. "The alliance of species has always been too divided, too selfish. There's a reason they want us distracted with petty wars and internal squabbles. A galaxy in chaos is a galaxy they can control." Her words hung in the air for a long moment, the weight of their implications sinking in. What had they discovered? And more importantly, why had no one told them? Suddenly, the sensors on the bridge began to flicker erratically. Kara's hands flew across the console, her face pale as she tried to stabilize the readings. "Captain, something's not right. We've passed the outer boundary of the anomaly. Sensors are reading a massive gravitational disturbance, but it's not on any charts. It's as if it's been erased from every map." Rhea's eyes narrowed. "Is it artificial?" "Yes, Captain. It's like someone? No, something is trying to hide it." Before Rhea could respond, the ship jolted violently. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engines faltered as if something unseen had reached out and touched the Scorpion. The crew stumbled and Rhea gripped the arm of her chair. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, her voice tight. Lieutenant Hayes gritted her teeth, fingers flying over the console. "Gravitational field spiked. We're being pulled into something." Rhea's heart skipped a beat as the ship was drawn helplessly toward a massive black void that seemed to appear out of nowhere, swallowing the stars whole. The gravitational pull was immense. The anomaly that had been erased from every known chart had suddenly revealed itself in all its terrifying magnitude. "All hands brace for impact," Rhea ordered, her voice steady despite the panic threatening to rise in her chest. But before they could react, the ship's hull screamed under the stress. And then everything went black. Rhea awoke to a dizzying disorientation. Her head throbbed and a sharp pain radiated down her spine. She felt weightless as though she was floating, but a strange and unnatural stillness pervaded the air. Slowly she opened her eyes, her vision blurry at first. When it cleared, she saw nothing but dark void and a few faint glimmers of distant light. She was no longer aboard the Scorpion. In a panic, she tried to sit up, but her body felt heavy. Her fingers moved to her forehead, pressing against the cool surface of her helmet. A soft hiss signaled the release of the helmet seal, and it slid off, revealing her face. Her eyes scanned the space around her. She was floating in what appeared to be an empty, boundless expanse, an unnatural black void that seemed to stretch on forever. There was no sign of the ship, the crew, or any familiar stars. "Rhea?" A voice crackled through her earpiece. It was Kara's voice, faint but unmistakable. "I'm here," Rhea replied, voice shaking slightly. She tried to activate the communication system, but there was only static in response. The disorienting absence of everything familiar left Rhea feeling small, isolated. It was as if the universe itself had disappeared, leaving them adrift in a void. She took a breath, forcing herself to calm down. "Kara, do you read me?" A few seconds later, a crackle came through. "Captain. I'm alive, I'm in the same, whatever this is. I've lost contact with the rest of the crew though. The ship, it's gone. I don't know how we're still breathing." Rhea's heart sank. The Scorpion had been ripped apart, torn from their reality and cast into the abyss. But how? And why? Her breath caught when a new sound echoed through her comm. It was a low hum, not unlike a whisper, but it didn't come from Kara. The sound seemed alive, organic, resonating from all directions at once. It grew louder, clearer, and with it came an unfamiliar presence that sent a cold shiver down Rhea's spine. There was something, or someone, else out there in the dark. "What is that?" Kara's voice quivered. Rhea felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. "I don't know, but we need to stay calm. We have to regroup. Find the others." Suddenly, a glowing light appeared ahead of them, a small point of brilliance, flickering like a distant star. It pulled at Rhea's attention as though it beckoned her. Her instincts screamed at her to avoid it, but something deep within her knew they had no choice. "Kara, follow me," Rhea ordered, steering her body toward the light. Together, they drifted toward it, the eerie hum intensifying as they approached. The light wasn't a star, but a structure. A massive structure, alien in design, with curves and angles that defied the physics Rhea had known. It hovered in the vast darkness like a slumbering behemoth, its edges shimmering with an unnatural energy. As they neared, a sudden jolt passed through the void like a shockwave. The light flickered violently before stabilizing. Rhea gasped as a shape materialized before them. It was an enormous, crystalline formation, embedded in the heart of the structure. Something ancient, far older than any known civilization. This is the dark matter," Rhea murmured, her voice filled with awe and dread. Kara's voice trembled. "What is it? What are we looking at?" Rhea felt her pulse quicken. "I don't know. But I think it's alive. The whispers, the hum, it's a communication signal of some kind, something far beyond our understanding." They moved closer, the structure's size and complexity impossible to comprehend. Every surface of the crystalline mass seemed to pulse, its core glowing in a way that reminded Rhea of something ancient, something forgotten. As they floated closer, an unexpected flash of light engulfed them. For a split second, Rhea felt herself being pulled into the core of the structure, as though the very fabric of reality itself had unraveled around her. Then with a sudden snap, the void disappeared. The lights blinked out and Rhea found herself standing in a chamber with walls made of the same glowing crystal. The sound of the hum intensified, vibrating through her chest. "Where are we?" Kara whispered, stepping cautiously around the chamber. Rhea's eyes darted over the room, scanning the alien technology. It was far beyond anything humanity had encountered. The walls shifted, forming intricate symbols and shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. Then a deep voice resonated from the chamber's walls, as though it emanated from the structure itself. "You have come, humans," the voice said, its tone chillingly calm. "But you are too late." Rhea's blood ran cold. The voice didn't sound hostile, but it was laced with a kind of inevitable finality. "What do you mean? Who are you?" she demanded, her voice louder than she intended. The voice replied, "We are the architects of the universe. And you have unknowingly disrupted the balance we have maintained for eons." The hum of the chamber turned into a deafening roar. The crystal walls pulsed violently, and Rhea felt a surge of power, an overwhelming presence that seemed to reach into her very soul. And then everything went silent. Rhea's head throbbed as the overwhelming silence enveloped her. Her ears rang, and she felt a sensation of pressure building around her chest. It was as though the very air was alive, watching, waiting for something. She looked around, her mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. Kara stood motionless beside her, wide-eyed, her breath shallow. The voice that had echoed through the chamber still lingered in the air, its weight pressing down on the crew like a shadow. "Who are you?" Kara's voice cracked as she whispered the words that echoed Rhea's own thoughts. For a moment there was no response. The room, if it could even be called that, remained eerily still. Then the walls began to shift once more, rearranging themselves into more elaborate, intricate patterns. The symbols, once fluid, began to form into something that resembled a map, an impossibly complex diagram stretching across the glowing surface. It was a representation of the cosmos, but not any galaxy that Rhea or Kara recognized. The architects, The voice spoke again, sending a chill down their spines. We are the creators of this universe, the ones who shaped your reality. You humans, insignificant though you may think yourselves, have come across something you do not understand. Rhea's pulse quickened. The implications of this were staggering. Creators of the universe? It didn't make sense, but then again none of this did. And what was it about that balance they spoke of? What do you want with us? Rhea finally asked, her voice firm despite the unease gnawing at her insides. Why are we here? We didn't ask for any of this. The voice responded, no longer soft but resonating with an undeniable authority, as if it were speaking directly into their minds. You are here because of your interference. The Scorpion's arrival disrupted the flow of time itself, pulling you from your dimension and into ours. You are an anomaly, an unintended ripple in the cosmic order. Rhea shook her head, disbelief clouding her thoughts. We didn't do anything. We just followed orders from the Alliance. The voice seemed to pause as though considering her words carefully. The Alliance, like your people, is a mere instrument in a greater plan, one that you are not meant to understand yet. You have been guided unknowingly to this point. It is your destiny to either restore the balance or to destroy it utterly. Destiny? Kara spat, her voice laced with anger. You think we're just some pawns in your game? Not pawns, the voice corrected gently. You are the key. A soft glow began to pulse at the center of the crystalline formation, and a new set of symbols appeared on the wall. They resembled a countdown ticking down at a steady pace. Time is slipping, the voice warned. You have little time to comprehend what is unfolding. The disruption you have caused cannot be undone by simple will. To fix what has been broken, you must travel to the origin, the very core of the universe itself. Rhea took a step forward, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the symbols on the walls. The countdown? It was ticking down to something catastrophic, but the question remained, how were they supposed to fix something they barely understood? How do we fix it? Rhea asked, her tone urgent. Tell us what we need to do. The voice was calm but unwavering. You must journey to the heart of the void. It is a place beyond the reach of your galaxy, beyond the known laws of physics. The heart is where all things converge, where time and space intertwine. It is there that the dark matter resides, an ancient force that maintains the balance of all existence. Kara, still reeling from the voice's words, stepped forward. The heart of the void? How do we get there? And what's the dark matter? Is that what we've been drawn into? The voice didn't respond immediately, as though considering the weight of their question. Finally, it spoke again, but this time its tone softened. The dark matter is not a thing. It is a force that binds the fabric of the universe. You must understand this, or you will never make it to the heart. Rhea clenched her fists, determination rising within her. So we go to this heart of the void and what? Fix everything and return home? The voice resonated, the words lingering in the air. If you fail, the entire universe will collapse upon itself. There will be no more stars, no more galaxies. All of existence will cease to be. Your species will be lost, and the architects will fade into oblivion. Rhea could feel the weight of the voice's warning pressing down on her, but she refused to be cowed. Her mission had been clear: protect humanity at all costs. And now, that mission had grown far more complicated. But there was one thing she knew for certain. We won't fail, she said firmly. We'll do whatever it takes to restore the balance. The voice hummed in approval, and the glowing symbols on the wall began to shift again. This time they formed a map, one that led deep into the heart of the universe. But as they stared at the map, Rhea noticed something unsettling. The path to the heart of the void was not a straight line. It twisted and turned, fraught with dangers and unknown perils. Before she could voice her thoughts, the chamber around them began to shake, and a loud crack echoed through the room. A violent wind began to swirl, lifting Rhea off her feet. The countdown on the wall ticked faster. Go now, the voice commanded. The time is almost upon you. Your journey begins, now. The chamber began to collapse in on itself, and Rhea barely had time to grab Kara's arm before the world around them shattered into darkness. When the darkness cleared, Rhea felt an overwhelming sense of vertigo. The ground beneath her feet was no longer solid, and she could hear the unsettling sound of rushing winds and something else, an eerie hum like the sound of a distant cosmic heartbeat. It was as though the very fabric of space and time had bent around them, and they were no longer in any dimension they recognized. She reached out instinctively to steady herself, only to find the space around her warping, stretching and flickering like a faulty hollow projector. The map from the chamber was still fresh in her mind, but it seemed to be more of a guide than a path to follow. They had been thrust into the unknown, both literally and figuratively. Where are we? Kara's voice broke through the disorienting sensation, her tone full of awe and fear. Rhea turned to see her crew member, still floating beside her, her eyes wide and filled with both confusion and wonder. Their surroundings were surreal, fractals of light and shadow folding into themselves like the universe was being rewritten before their eyes. I don't know, Rhea admitted, trying to steady her breathing. But wherever we are, it's not anywhere we've been before. Above them, the cosmos appeared to churn, the stars twisting and collapsing in on themselves like living creatures in a never-ending dance. It was as though the universe itself was a puzzle, its pieces shifting, merging, and reshaping. We're not even in a galaxy anymore, Kara murmured. This isn't even a part of space as we know it. The cold rush of wind grew louder, and the air seemed to vibrate with unseen energy. Then, before they could react, a rift opened up in the sky above them, a rift large enough to swallow entire star systems. From within the rift, someone, spoke. Welcome, travelers. The voice was a calm, resonating presence, as though it came from both all directions and none at once. It had no physical form but carried an immense weight, a gravitas that made Rhea's chest tighten in response. A figure emerged from the rift, walking across the rift's threshold as though it were a doorway. The being was cloaked in dark robes, its face hidden beneath a hood of shadow. It didn't move like any living creature Rhea had seen. It seemed to float, its presence bending the very light around it. I am called Aether, the being intoned, guardian of the void. Rhea instinctively raised her weapon, but her hand faltered mid-motion. There was something disarming about the figure, something unsettling but not overtly hostile. A voice in her mind urged her to stand down, that this being, whatever it was, held more power than they could comprehend. Aether continued, you are the first humans to set foot in this domain. And now, you are part of something much larger than you could ever imagine. Rhea tried to steady her voice, but she could feel the gravity of the situation. What is this place? Where are we? How do we get to the heart of the void? Aether's head tilted, as if considering her words with infinite patience. You are standing at the crossroads between worlds. The heart of the void lies beyond the edge of space-time, where even the fabric of reality itself unravels. To reach it, you must first confront the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers? Kara echoed, her voice trembling. Aether nodded slowly. They are the ancient sentinels that guard the path to the heart. They are not mere creatures but the embodiment of the universe's laws. To pass through them is to challenge the very essence of existence. A ripple of unease swept through Rhea's chest. They had been warned that their journey would be perilous, but the mention of these gatekeepers, the living embodiments of universal law, made it clear that their task was even more dangerous than they had anticipated. And how do we pass them? Rhea asked, despite the nagging fear that she might not like the answer. You will need to prove your worth, Aether replied, not in the way you may think. The gatekeepers are not concerned with strength, nor are they moved by courage. They will test your understanding of the universe. Your ability to comprehend the balance between chaos and order. Tests of knowledge? Kara asked skeptically. What does that even mean? Aether raised a hand and the space around them shimmered, distorting into a series of swirling symbols, complex equations, geometries, and abstract concepts that Rhea could barely process. Her head began to ache just looking at them. The universe, Aether continued, is not what it seems. You cannot think of it in the way you have been taught. It is not merely the sum of its parts. There are deeper forces at play, forces that transcend matter and time, and they must be understood before you can proceed. Before Rhea could respond, the symbols flickered out, replaced by a single phrase in glowing letters. Only those who can see beyond the veil will walk the path to salvation. Rhea's heart sank. This was beyond anything she had prepared for. The weight of the responsibility, of the task that now lay before them, felt almost too much to bear. Yet there was no turning back. She had already seen too much. We don't have much time, she said, forcing herself to focus. The countdown in the chamber. What happens when it reaches 0? Aether's expression, if it could be called that, was unreadable. You will understand in time. The collapse you seek to prevent has already begun. The countdown is a measure of its progress. Kara shot Rhea a worried glance. So we're too late? No, Aether's voice was firm. It is never too late. But only those who understand the universe's deeper laws can avert the end. To proceed, you must first learn what lies at the foundation of existence itself. As the words sank in, the air around them grew colder, the hum of the universe vibrating at a frequency Rhea could feel deep in her bones. Follow me, Aether instructed, stepping aside as the rift behind them expanded. The gatekeepers await. Rhea exchanged a look with Kara. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath she stepped forward. Rhea's feet touched the ground with a soft thud, though the surface beneath her felt strange, like it wasn't solid at all. The environment around them shifted as the rift closed, leaving them standing on what appeared to be a vast, endless expanse of floating platforms, each suspended in the void. The platforms stretched out before them, all leading in different directions, some curving upward, others downward, all varying in size and shape. The entire space felt like it was alive, pulsating with an eerie rhythm. There was no sky, no stars, no planets, just an infinite void. Only the platforms, glowing faintly with an ethereal light, anchored the endless nothingness around them. It was a space neither alive nor dead, existing outside the comprehension of reality itself. In front of them, at the center of the expanse, stood 3 towering figures. The gatekeepers. Each one was distinct, neither humanoid nor animal but something in between. Their bodies seemed to be made of swirling cosmic energy, their forms constantly shifting, like they were constructed from the very fabric of the universe. One was a figure of pure darkness, its body a shifting mass of void, absorbing all light. The second was composed of light itself, brilliant, blinding but with no discernible shape. The third was a storm of fractal patterns, ever-changing and moving, as if it existed in multiple dimensions at once. They stood motionless, but their presence loomed over Rhea and Kara like the weight of a collapsing star. Despite their immensity, they didn't feel like creatures or beings. They felt more like manifestations of abstract concepts, like they were the very essence of the forces they represented. The stillness stretched on for what felt like an eternity before the figure of darkness moved. It was silent at first, its form undulating like smoke, and then its voice, deep, resonant, and all-encompassing, filled the void. "Who dares to disturb the balance?" It boomed, the words reverberating through Rhea's bones. "Who dares to seek the heart of the void?" Rhea stepped forward, her voice steady despite the heavy weight pressing on her chest. "We are here to prevent the collapse of the universe. We seek to restore balance." The figure of light, which had remained silent until now, flickered brightly, its voice soft but carrying an undeniable sense of finality. "Balance? You cannot restore what has been broken, for the fracture you speak of is not external. It is within you, within all beings who think they understand the nature of reality." Kara flinched at the words, her eyes darting nervously to Rhea. The figure of fractal patterns began to twist, its voice like an intricate melody, each note reverberating in multiple frequencies at once. "To pass," it sang, "you must first understand the meaning of the void. What is it that separates existence from non-existence? What is the value of something that is not yet formed?" Rhea took a deep breath, trying to ground herself. The cryptic words were enough to make anyone second-guess their ability to understand, but she knew they had to push forward. The fate of humanity, and the entire universe, depended on it. "We don't have time for riddles," she said, frustration edging her voice. "You say we must prove our understanding of existence, but we can't even begin to fathom what you mean. Tell us how we're supposed to pass your trial." The figure of darkness moved again, its form swirling like an inky black storm. "Time is a construct, young human. It is not your enemy, but neither is it your ally. Your world lives in a cycle, born, grown, and dying. But it is not the end that matters, for in the void there is no end. There is only transition." Rhea felt the weight of the words press on her mind, trying to force her to understand something intangible. She shook her head. "We don't understand. Please tell us how we pass your test." The light figure flickered once more, its glow softening as it answered, "There is no answer that can be spoken. You must reach beyond the limits of your perception, beyond the constraints of your time, and find the truth of the universe within you. It is in your capacity to question, to doubt, that the answer lies. Only when you can understand the void within yourselves can you pass into the heart." The fractal figure let out a sound that seemed to resonate in Rhea's very soul, a sound that filled the void and wrapped around her thoughts. "What is the beginning of the end? You must answer this or you will be trapped in the void forever." The silence that followed was suffocating. The enormity of their trial was more apparent now than ever. Rhea's mind spun. The universe, the forces of darkness, light, and chaos. How could she understand these forces? How could they hope to comprehend the nature of existence itself in a way that would satisfy these cosmic gatekeepers? Her pulse quickened as she looked to Kara for support, but her crewmate looked as lost as she felt, her expression a mirror of uncertainty. It was then that a realization struck Rhea, a simple, terrifying idea. The question, "What is the beginning of the end?" wasn't asking about the physical collapse of the universe. It was asking about the nature of the cycle itself. Every beginning had an end. Every existence had a transition. It was a question about life itself. Rhea closed her eyes, grounding herself. The answer wasn't in science or theory. It was in the heart of human experience, the understanding that everything, every star, every planet, every life was interconnected. The end wasn't the destruction of the universe, but the transformation that occurred when one part of the cycle passed into the next. She spoke slowly, her voice calm but with a quiet certainty. The beginning of the end is the moment of transition. The moment when what is becomes what is yet to be. The universe is a cycle, one that is never truly finished but always in a state of becoming. The gatekeepers were silent for a long moment. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, and the stars themselves appeared to flicker with anticipation. Finally, the figure of darkness spoke again, its voice reverberating with an otherworldly resonance. "You have answered correctly," it said, its tone both approving and mournful. "You understand that which you must. But the path is not yet complete. You must still face the void within yourself." The platforms around them shifted, revealing a new path leading deeper into the unknown. Rhea's heart raced, but she nodded to Kara. It was time to continue. The path ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, winding through the eerie, shifting platforms that now looked more like floating islands, each more jagged and alien than the last. The air around them hummed with a strange energy, like the very fabric of the universe itself was reacting to their presence. Rhea could feel the weight of the trial they had just passed, but she knew that whatever lay ahead would be far more difficult. The gatekeepers had allowed them to proceed, but only because they had passed the first test. "Keep your focus," Rhea muttered under her breath, more to herself than to Kara as she steadied her breath. "We're not out of the woods yet." Kara nodded, though her expression was far from confident. "This place doesn't feel right, Rhea. It's like we're not even in reality anymore. It's too unnatural." Rhea glanced around. She couldn't deny it. The air felt thick, oppressive, like every breath was more difficult to take. Time itself seemed out of joint here, too. Minutes stretched into hours and seconds felt like eternity. There was no clear horizon, no sun to mark the passage of time. They were walking through a realm that defied their understanding of physics, a place where reality and non-reality bled together. The path they walked on was made of strange, luminescent stone, giving off an otherworldly glow that painted the world in soft hues of violet and blue. As they moved, it felt like they were being pulled into a vortex of unknown forces. The quiet around them was profound, so deep that every small sound felt amplified. Eventually, the path widened into an open space, and before them, the landscape unfolded into a vast expanse of shifting, swirling energy. A black sea of liquid darkness stretched out, the surface roiling and shifting as though it were alive. Massive, invisible waves seemed to crash across it, though nothing moved physically. The air vibrated with the force of 1,000 storms. At the center of this chaotic space stood a figure. A silhouette bathed in shadows, standing motionless before them, its presence overwhelming. Unlike the gatekeepers they had faced before, this being did not have the shifting, cosmic form of energy. It was a human, dressed in dark robes, with no visible features except a pair of glowing eyes that seemed to pierce right through them. "Who are you?" Rhea asked, her voice firm but her pulse quickened. The figure did not respond, but it raised one hand slowly, pointing towards the sea of darkness. "Step forward," it finally spoke, its voice like a distant whisper, but it was clear and penetrating, resonating in Rhea's mind. "The void awaits you." Kara looked uncertain. "What does it mean?" Rhea hesitated but stepped forward. There was no other option. They had come too far, and turning back now would be a death sentence. Whatever this void was, they had to face it. As Rhea stepped closer to the boundary of the sea, a cold wave of dread washed over her. She was about to cross into something darker than anything she had ever encountered, something that threatened to erase the very fabric of her identity. A sudden gust of wind knocked her back and she stumbled. The figure in front of them did not move, but it had been waiting for this moment. "The void is not a place, human," it said, its voice echoing. "It is a state of mind. To enter it, you must first confront the darkness within." Rhea's breath caught. The words cut deeper than anything she had felt in a long time. Her heart hammered in her chest as she realized the meaning of the figure's words. This was not just a trial of survival. This was a trial of the mind, of the soul. She had to face the void within herself, the parts of her consciousness she had never confronted. The figure raised its hand again, and the swirling void before her seemed to pull at her, beckoning her closer. With every step it grew stronger, louder, and more overwhelming. The edges of her vision blurred as if reality itself was beginning to unravel. Suddenly, Rhea found herself standing in an empty room. It was familiar, too familiar. It was her quarters on the Scorpion, but everything was wrong. The walls were covered in cracks, the light flickered, and the air felt stale, suffocating. Her heart sank as she realized what was happening. This was her mind, her own subconscious. Rhea, a voice called, one she would never forget. It was her mother's voice. Soft, comforting, yet filled with something else, something unsettling. Rhea, it's time. Rhea spun around. There, standing in front of her, was her mother, exactly as she remembered, looking just as she had when Rhea was a child. But there was something off about her, something wrong. You shouldn't be here, Rhea whispered, her voice trembling. You're gone? Her mother smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was knowing, cold, and it made Rhea's blood run cold. You've always been afraid of what lies beyond, haven't you, Rhea? Always running from the unknown. But now there is no escape. Rhea stumbled back, her breath quickening. No. This isn't real. Her mother's image flickered and shifted, changing into something far darker. Her face twisted into an expression of pain as though she were pleading for help. The air grew thick and oppressive, the very walls of her quarters seeming to close in on her. You cannot escape the darkness inside you, the figure of her mother said, its voice now a distorted, eerie whisper. You will never outrun your fears. You are trapped in your own creation. Rhea's mind raced, desperately trying to cling to the reality she knew. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the more she struggled, the more the walls of her own thoughts pressed in on her. No, she shouted, her voice cracking. I'm not afraid. The figure of her mother vanished, and the room around her dissolved into a swirling darkness. Rhea fell to her knees, her mind screaming in frustration. The voice of the figure from earlier echoed in her mind. The void is within you. Only when you accept what you fear, only when you confront your deepest darkness, can you move forward. Rhea gasped for air as the void continued to close in. Her heart beat faster, but then something shifted within her. She understood now. The fear, the darkness, it was part of her, not something to be fought, but something to be acknowledged, accepted, and understood. The more she fought it, the stronger it became. Slowly, painfully, Rhea stood and faced the black sea within her mind. She didn't run from it anymore. She reached out, touching the darkness, allowing it to consume her, not in fear but in acceptance. And with that, the void released its hold on her. Rhea blinked, her breath ragged and uneven as the blackness around her started to dissipate. The dark sea, which had once threatened to swallow her whole, now seemed to retreat like a passing storm, leaving her in a space where nothing existed but the echo of her own thoughts. The oppressive weight on her chest lightened, and the overwhelming sense of fear and dread that had choked her mind melted away. She opened her eyes, and found herself standing once more on the floating platform, the endless void stretching out around her. The chaotic energy of the sea was gone, replaced by a soft, still calm. For a moment, Rhea stood there, her heart thudding in her chest, unsure if she had truly moved forward or if she was still trapped in the depths of her own subconscious. But then there was a shift. The platform beneath her feet trembled, and a series of crackling lights filled the air. A voice rang out, familiar yet distant, as though from deep within her own mind. The void has been conquered, but the truth still awaits. Rhea's heart stilled. She knew that voice. It was her own. Before she could react, the figure from the previous trial, the shadowy figure that had confronted her, appeared once more. This time it didn't move as before. It didn't raise a hand or speak, but simply stood in front of her, its glowing eyes fixed upon her as though it was waiting for something. You've faced the void within yourself, the figure said softly. But now you must face the greatest trial of all. Rhea's pulse quickened. What do you mean? What else could there be? The figure was silent for a moment, its gaze penetrating as though it could see through the very core of her being. Then, with deliberate slowness, it spoke again. The truth you seek is not one you can easily comprehend, human. It lies within the heart of the universe, and within the heart of every living being. It is not something you can hold in your hands or touch with your mind. To understand the truth, you must become part of it. Rhea shook her head, her brow furrowing in confusion. What are you saying? How can we become part of something we can't even understand? The figure's form flickered, its voice taking on a more somber tone. The universe is not what it appears. Everything you think you know is a fragment of the whole. The heart of the void is not merely a place. It is the essence of all that exists, the origin of time and space itself. And to reach it, you must surrender what you think you know. Only then can the universe reveal its true form. The figure raised its hand toward her, and for the first time, Rhea noticed the faint pattern of shifting symbols embedded in its palm. They seemed familiar, like the symbols she had seen in the ancient chamber on the Scorpion, the map that had guided them to this point. The first trial was to face the void within you. The second trial is to face the void within the universe itself. The truth will not come to you easily. But you are closer than you realize. A brilliant pulse of light erupted from the figure's hand, and Rhea's vision blurred. For a fleeting moment, she felt herself pulled into the very fabric of reality, her body dissolving into pure energy as she was drawn into the vast expanse of the cosmos. Stars exploded and collapsed, galaxies spun in rapid motion, and the forces of creation and destruction swirled around her. In that instant, Rhea understood. The universe was not just a collection of stars, planets, and life. It was a living, breathing entity, a single, interconnected organism, bound together by forces that could never be fully understood by the mind. But in that moment she felt it deeply and undeniably. She was part of it. She had always been. The vision faded just as quickly as it had come, and Rhea was back on the platform, her knees weak as she caught her breath. Kara was standing beside her now, her expression one of concern. "Rhea?" Kara's voice was soft, unsure. "What happened? Are you okay?" Rhea blinked, trying to steady herself. She could still feel the pull of the vision, the weight of the cosmic truth pressing on her chest. She nodded slowly, though her mind was still racing to process everything. I'm fine," Rhea said, her voice trembling with both exhaustion and wonder. "I think I just saw something. Something that the universe is trying to show me." Kara stepped closer, her eyes scanning Rhea's face. "What do you mean? What did you see?" Rhea hesitated, searching for the right words to describe the unfathomable experience. "I saw the universe, Kara. I felt it. All of it. Every star, every galaxy, every life, every moment. It's all connected. We're all part of something much larger than we could ever understand." Kara's brow furrowed, confusion clouding her features. "But how? What does that mean for us? How does it help us stop the collapse?" Rhea's voice grew more resolute as she spoke, a new understanding dawning on her. The collapse isn't just a physical event. It's the breakdown of understanding, the collapse of the truth. But we can't stop it by fighting it. We stop it by accepting the truth. By becoming part of the very fabric of existence, we can shift the balance. Kara seemed to process this for a moment before nodding, though the confusion remained in her eyes. "You mean, we have to become part of it? Become part of the universe?" Rhea nodded. "Exactly. The collapse isn't the end of everything, it's the end of our limited perspective. To fix the universe, we must see it the way it truly is, beyond time, beyond space. Only then can we stop the collapse before it destroys everything." Before Kara could ask more, a new sound filled the air, a deep, rumbling vibration that seemed to come from the very core of the space around them. The light grew brighter, and the platform beneath them began to crack and tremble. "Rhea, what's happening?" Kara asked, panic creeping into her voice. Rhea didn't answer immediately. She felt it too, the coming of something vast and powerful. Whatever was about to happen, it would either make or break their mission. And then, as the rumbling grew louder, a final voice echoed through the void, one they both recognized. A choice must be made. The rumbling intensified, the very space around them beginning to warp and twist. The glowing platforms cracked beneath their feet, fissures snaking out like veins through the cosmic expanse. The figure that had guided them thus far, the shadowy being that had been their constant presence, stood unmoving at the center of the chaos, its eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. Rhea's pulse pounded in her ears as she felt the gravitational pull of the growing instability. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to do something, but she knew it wasn't fear that she felt. It was the weight of the choice, the final test that the universe itself had placed before her. "This is it," Rhea whispered to herself. "This is where it all comes down to." The figure's voice rang out, calm and unyielding in the face of the impending destruction. "The heart of the void is within your reach, but to grasp it, you must make the ultimate decision." Kara's eyes darted around, trying to make sense of the chaos around them. "What decision? What are we supposed to do?" Rhea stepped forward, her heart still pounding but her resolve solid. "We've been seeking the heart of the void to stop the collapse. But what if the collapse is not something we can stop? What if it's something we have to embrace?" The figure in front of them spoke again, its voice filled with a quiet certainty. "The collapse is inevitable. But you are not wrong in thinking that it must be embraced. The cycle of the universe is not one of destruction, it is one of transition. It must end for something new to begin. Rhea felt the weight of those words settle on her chest. She knew what the figure was saying. The universe was not about avoiding collapse. It was about understanding it, embracing it, and allowing the next phase of existence to come into being. The heart of the void wasn't just a place, it was a force, a concept. The heart was the catalyst of transition, not the preservation of the current order. Kara took a step back, her voice quivering. But we can't just let everything die. If we let the collapse happen, everything we know will be destroyed. We will be destroyed. Rhea's eyes met Kara's, and for a moment she saw the fear that mirrored her own. But there was something else now, something different, something far more profound. Rhea's voice was steady as she answered, her gaze unwavering. Maybe it won't be destroyed. Maybe it will be transformed. We can't fight the collapse. We have to choose, whether to resist it and let the universe stagnate or let it collapse so something new can emerge. Kara's face twisted with uncertainty. But what happens to us? To everyone? The truth is, I don't know, Rhea admitted, her voice softer now as if trying to come to terms with her own realization. But I think we can't hold on to what we know forever. The universe is alive. It has to change. For a long moment, there was only the sound of the crackling energy around them, the deep vibrations of an impending transformation that could not be stopped. Then the figure spoke again, its voice taking on a final, resolute tone. There is no going back. Choose now, for the fate of all things rests in your hands. You may choose to preserve the old order, or you may embrace the collapse and step into a new beginning. Rhea closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of the cosmos in her chest. The choice before her was not one of survival, it was one of rebirth. She could feel the truth of the universe now, the inevitable cycle of life and death, creation and destruction. It was a pattern older than time itself. The future wasn't written. It could only be shaped by the choices they made in the present. With that clarity, Rhea's heart steadied. She opened her eyes and turned to Kara, who was watching her with wide eyes, searching for an answer, a lifeline. Kara, Rhea said quietly, I can't promise we'll survive what's coming. But we have to trust that the universe will continue, even if it means letting go of everything we know. Kara looked at her for a long moment as though weighing the words, the possibilities. Finally she nodded, a mix of fear and determination settling on her face. All right, Rhea. I trust you. Let's do this. Rhea took a deep breath and then, with a final glance at the figure before her, she stepped forward. She wasn't running from the collapse. She was walking into it. She reached out toward the shifting, pulsating heart of the void, her hands trembling but resolute. The moment she touched it, everything exploded into a blinding light. For what seemed like an eternity, the universe was a blinding, radiant wave. Time lost all meaning. The cosmos pulsed and churned, folding into itself like a cosmic breath. Stars burst into being and collapsed in the blink of an eye. The boundaries between life and death, existence and non-existence, shattered in the wake of the energy that filled the void. Then, as quickly as it had come, the light faded. Rhea's mind reeled as she blinked against the sudden silence, the rush of energy that had filled her body now ebbing away. Slowly she opened her eyes. They were no longer standing on the floating platform but in a new place, new yet familiar. The cosmos stretched before them, not in chaos but in harmony. The stars were brighter, the space between them clearer. The vast, dark sea of the void was gone, replaced by a new energy, a new force, a force of creation. Rhea's breath caught in her chest. She felt it then. The universe had changed. It wasn't destroyed. It had been reborn. She turned to Kara, a sense of peace settling in her heart. Kara looked back at her, eyes wide with awe. We did it, Kara whispered, her voice trembling. We really did it? Rhea smiled, a quiet but confident smile. No, Kara. We didn't do it. The universe did. We just had to let it. And in that moment, Rhea realized something. The fate of the universe was not in the hands of one person, one species, or even the universe itself. It was in the choices made in the face of the unknown. The collapse was never an end, it was always a beginning. And the universe, vast and endless, would continue to evolve. Forever. The end.